friendos. Welcome to the Kiddo Ditto Krafts podcast. My name is Kira, and I live in Northern California with my husband and two kitties. One of them is here. William Blake has decided to join us for today's podcast episode. I am a knitter, a painter, a sewist, and a crafter. And this is my space on YouTube to show you what I've been working on. So today we're going to talk about some Christmas gift acquisitions that I got and some things that I have planned for the new year. Of course, along with what I'm wearing, finished objects, works in progress, and what's next on my needles. So yeah, let's get started. Today is January 1st. I went up to my parents with Jamie last night, and we watched some movies and had some drinks and lit some sparklers at midnight, and we spent the night too, which was nice. Got to wake up and have breakfast and spend some more time with my family, and it was a great way to usher in the new year in a not large party, non-COVID friendly kind of way. I'm curious what you did for New Year's, if you did anything at all. I did get some knitting in during some of the movies. And I mean, that's typically how I like to spend New Year's anyway. It's just at home with a few people with the TV on. I like to watch The Twilight Zone and have a drink and knit. Well, the knitting is kind of a new addition. I've only been knitting since June of 2019, so I'm sure I knit last year. And I got to knit again this year, so ushered in the new year with knitting. So first, of course, we will talk about what I'm wearing. So this is my Whale Falls sweater. Stand up so you can see the color work on that. And then the hem. Just some simple color work here. And then what I really like about this pattern are the color block sleeves. And that is something that you don't see a whole lot. And it's something that I really enjoy. And I enjoyed knitting this. The pattern is Timber Falls by This Bird Knits. Adjust and hopefully not disturb the cat too much. And the yarn is Malabrigo Worsted. Now, I learned later that it's not a good idea to knit garments or socks in single ply yarn. Worsted is a single ply because it will pill like crazy, and it has, which doesn't super bother me, but it does affect kind of the look of the sweater. So one of these days I'm going to have to get a gleaner or a shaver or something to clean up all the pills on this. But if I were to make it again, I would use Rios probably, Malabrigo Rios, because that's a 4-ply. And that just means that the structure of the yarn holds together a little better. I'm not totally well versed in that level of like technicalities on knitting yet, but I'm learning. So now I know. When you knit garments, don't use a single ply. So, yeah, but I really like this sweater. I wear it a lot. It's very comfy. It's oversized. And yeah, keeps me cozy. And I love the colors, of course, too. So, oh, and then I'm also wearing my first pair of socks ever. They are, I used my favorite vanilla sock pattern by the Unapologetic Knitter. And you can see they're pretty loose and baggy. I used, I think, a size 2 needle. I've since gone down to size 1s or 0s when I knit socks. So they came out pretty baggy, and they're also my first and only cuff down socks. There's a couple patterns I have coming up in my queue that are also cuff down, but I really like toe up. One advantage though to cuff down is, it might be easier to see from the other side, but I was able to do the toe shaping, so it perfectly followed the ridge of my toes, the shape of my foot. So these fit like amazingly well in the toe. They're just baggy everywhere else. So I used Baah yarn, B-A-A-H yarn, for these. This was my first like fancy yarn purchase, and I got it from my sister-in-law's yarn shop, Sethany Knits, because I loved the color, which is why most people buy yarn, I think. And yeah, it was really nice to work with, and I've already had to darn them, I think because they're so loose, but I know how to do that now, so I can fix them again in the future. So that's what I'm wearing today. Going to introduce a new segment today. Ooh la la, stash enhancement. Because obviously it was Christmas, I got a few knitty things. So, first of all, I got some yarn. These are both Blue Sky fibers. They are organic cotton worsted. And this one is Lotus, and this is Aloe, and they're super soft. I've not worked with cotton before. I got these from my brother-in-law for our sibling gift exchange, and I think they're gorgeous. He did an excellent job picking the colors. I'd like to do maybe something color work out of them, or maybe knit some washcloths since they're cotton, like for face wash, or some little like makeup pads or things like that. But I would like to do color work with them too, because I think that they're like perfect for color work. So we'll see. They'll live in my stash for a little while. And then with some Christmas money, we went to my mother-in-law's in Idaho. We drove and were very safe along the way. And then while we were there, I of course had to visit the yarn shop there with masked up, of course. I can't wait until we don't have to qualify every outing to reassure everyone we're doing it right and safe. I know everyone has different levels of comfort when it comes to COVID stuff, and we do what we can, obviously, to keep ourselves and everyone else safe when we go out. So we had masks on. My mother-in-law and I went to the Twisted U in Idaho, which was a super cool shop. They've got some really cool metal work art out. And then I got this skein by Alexandra Art of Yarn. You can see that there. It's called Indian Summer. It was custom dyed for the Twisted U, and I think it would make a perfect pair of Christmas socks. So even though it's, you know, titled Indian Summer, I think the colors remind me of Christmas. So I got that with some Christmas money. And I'm going to knit my next pair of Christmas socks with that. And then I got some knitting books. First, books in my knitting library. So I got this from my brother-in-law as well, the Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible. And it is just full of, there's tons and tons. There's charts for lace work and some cabling. It's just gorgeous stuff. I've seen this book around, and it was kind of in the back of my mind of something I wanted to get someday, and he surprised me with it. So good on you, Joshua. I'm really excited about these edging patterns. There's pages and pages of edging. Like, it just goes on and on for days, the edging patterns here. So I'm definitely going to be using these on sweaters in the future because ribbing is boring. So I'm excited about that. We'll definitely be putting some of these techniques to use. And also, you know, with a hat recipe, you can knit yourself lace cabled hats and all kinds of fun stuff. So recommend that book. I also got from my parents for Christmas Wild Mittens and Unruly Socks 1 and 2. These are by Lumi Kermitza, and I first heard about these when on Instagram I saw someone knit up the Cats in the Night, I think? Yeah, Cats in the Night mittens. These are the socks, which I want to knit. But the mittens, hold that up a little longer so you can get a good look at it. the mittens use the same pattern, and they're super cute. So I went on kind of a Ravelry wild goose chase to figure out where this pattern came from, and then discovered that they were only available in these books. So onto my wish list they went. There's also some great patterns. I want to knit the Always a Bridesmaid mitts, which are these little skulls with flowers. Different colors on those for me. I'm not super crazy about the color choices on these. The peacocks are really pretty though. Peacock socks. I'm not a huge mitten person. It's not really cold enough here for mittens, but the charts you can use for all kinds of stuff. I really want to knit these over-the-knee jellyfish socks. Make sure you can see those. Hopefully the light isn't, there's not a huge glare. These are super cool. Here's some shorter ones. Anyway, so there's like tons of really inventive and fun, and some are really funny patterns as well. I want to knit these spooky Christmas socks. Anyway, there's like 20, yeah, so this one has 22, they both have 22 different patterns, so different color word charts. So that's super cool. Hopefully I'll knit one or two of those this year. And then I got Sark Architecture for my parents as well. This is by Laura Neal, and I heard about this from a podcast. It might have been the Stranded podcast, but it's all about sock construction in like crazy amounts of detail, and which I'm very interested in. I'm kind of on a quest to knit myself the perfect pair of socks and figure out what my perfect recipe is. I'm getting closer and closer with every pair, so hopefully this will help too. There's tons of different heel constructions and things and instructions to try them, so you know, depending on, I've got a bunch of pretty sock yarn and I'll be able to do some experimenting with this. So those are my acquisitions from Christmas. On to finished objects, of which I actually have several. So I got the Sickis cowl done, which turned out just gorgeous in my opinion. It is a beautiful pattern, and I love this Madeline Tosh Wino Forever yarn, which is the purple. I just used Cascade for the black and white. I have not blocked this yet. I don't know that I mean, I probably should, probably will, but I've worn it, and it was very, very cozy. I knit this on the way to Idaho in the car. Started it like the day or two before, got up to about here, and then on the 9-hour drive, knit the rest of it. So that was satisfying. Nice to get something done and off the needles fairly quickly. It's a short little cowl, so it went pretty quick. And it's gorgeous. I just love that pattern. It's so pretty. The pattern is by Jennifer Berg, who is native knitter, and it's based, I think, on Navajo motifs. I think. I'll double check, and if there's any corrections, I'll put them in here, but I want to make sure I'm accurate on that. So yeah, love this cowl. I will be getting lots of wear out of that for sure. So there's one finished object there, and then I have my Bah Humbug socks, which I showed y'all last time. I was partway through one of them, and I have both done now. They need to be cleaned. I don't usually block my socks, but I do wash them. They are covered in fuzzies from the various brand new pajama pants I got over Christmas as well. So, so one thing I tried with these, which I mentioned on my last episode, was I have fairly large calves in comparison to the rest of my foot and ankle. So I have a hard time getting longer sock legs over my calves. So what I saw on Instagram, a knitter give like a I forget who, I'll find it and stick it in the notes or here on the screen. She showed the same pattern in 2 completely different sizes just by sizing up the needles. And I was like, well, duh, that makes sense. You know, gauge is a thing. But I had never considered intentionally sizing up a pattern by going up a needle size. So I decided to try that. So I ended up with much more stretch near the top of the calf as compared to, oh, that doesn't look like the foot there. So that compared to that, there you go. And they fit so perfectly. I love it. It makes me very happy to have a nice pair of socks that fits over my calves. Yes. Because store-bought socks never fit over my calves. So that's satisfying for sure. The contrast, so the yarn I used on this is a self-striping by Turtle Pearl. I have another self-striping set that I got at the same time that I will be making another pair, probably similar to these. But yeah, and then the toe and heel are Cascade fibers. So, and this is slightly more blue, this is slightly more green, but you can't really tell. I think if I were to do it again, I would try to start on a red so that the alternating colors matched a little better, but whatever, they're just for me, and I love them. So this is my first pair of Christmas socks off the needles, and I finished those on Christmas Day, so that was convenient. Oh, and then this is kind of a bonus. My Dino Star, get it? Because it's dinosaur constellations. Dino Star dress. I kind of got a wild hair this week that I was going to knit myself a dress for New Year's, or sew myself a dress for New Year's. And I did. On Wednesday, the day before New Year's Eve, I decided to draft, cut, and sew this dress. So I did. I'm really pleased with how it came out. It was the first time I'd ever drafted my own pattern. I definitely went based on the patterns that I have and have made. But I took my own measurements, you know, sketched it out, and then measured it all out on my tracing. I have a big old tracing paper pad. And there's definitely things I learned. Originally, I wanted the sleeves to stick out more, like kind of like a Space Cadet looking thing. And then I wanted the neckline to be a little more dramatic, so to have it kind of diamond shape as opposed to an arrow shape, which is what it more is now. But and also, like, I couldn't quite get these to line up perfectly. So there's just, like, you know, little things. But I, you know, like I said, I learned a lot in drafting this pattern, and now I have the pattern cut out, and I can, since it's on tracing paper, trace it out again and try it again if I want to do a similar design. But anyway, I also did an A-line skirt, and of course I added pockets because I'm remembering to add pockets now to everything. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this dress came out. And I'll definitely be doing more A-line skirts because I think it looks smashing on me. So there's a little bonus finished object there. Ugh. Okay. Sip some tea here. I'll talk about the tea with my works in progress. So I have 2 works in progress currently. It's nice to be down to 2. One, I'm carrying them both with me into the new year, but One that I've been working on for, I think, since October now. It's one of my longest running works in progress of all time. I have a pretty good track record, if I do say so myself. These are my Fleet Feet socks. They have a very cool pattern on them. So you can see that textured pattern. Then it kind of comes up into like a wing. They're meant to kind of imitate Hermes' little winged shoes, so that's why they're called Fleet Feet. This needs a heel still. I've got my little scrap yarn in here for my forethought heel, but the cuff is done and everything, so yeah. So I've got one sock almost done, and this is why people block socks, is when they do fun patterns and things like this, because this would look gorgeous if it were blocked. So I don't have sock blockers. I might get some so I can block them properly. Oh, I really like the toe construction on these, by the way. We'll see how they fit on my feet, but they were fun to knit, and I think if I like them, I will use that again in other patterns. But it's you know, I don't want to give it away because it is a paid pattern, but it's not your basic, you know, Judy's Magic cast on and then increase. There's like a garter stitch kind of strip at the very edge of the toe, so kind of gives it some nice structure. So anyway, almost a half object for Fleet Feet socks. I'll probably put the heel in today or over the weekend and get the other one on the needles. So hopefully by next episode those will be done. It's been a challenging project. I'm not crazy about knitting heavily textured or lacy sock patterns in particular. I think in my head I equate socks with kind of on the go, take it and knitting. Like I loved knitting my Christmas socks, my Bah Humbug socks, because it's just knitting in the round for days and it goes really fast. I use mini circulars, the little shorties, 9-inch shorties, for those, and that works really well for me. And so it's more of a challenge for me to sit there and have to figure out, okay, now we do this, now we do that, which for some reason doesn't bother me as much on like a sweater or a shawl, possibly because the changes happen more quickly on a sock because it's a smaller project. Anyway, the moral of the story is I needed to have vanilla socks on the go all the time, just to have a pair ready to go. But this pair of socks has also taken me a lot longer, and I think that's because it's not so easy to just take and knit. So might be my last textured sock for a while. We'll see. I'm enjoying it anyway. And then my Christmas Day cast on is my Sipilla sweater. This pattern is by, should mention, the Fleet Feet socks pattern is by Fatimah Hinds. So, of course, all that info will be in the show notes. My Sipilla sweater, though, is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter. And I am very much enjoying how this is turning out. So you can see the pattern there. And the colors are just beautiful. I was a little worried because you can see they're both pretty variegated, so it's really subtle. I was worried that it wasn't going to be enough contrast, but I think it is. And particularly, like Caitlin Hunter does a lot of that, variegated on variegated, at least some of her earlier patterns, yarn color choices. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm knitting it out of Fiber for the People in Titan and in Wood Sugar. So these are not a typical color choice for me, but I'm really happy with how they're turning out. And I mean, I wear black leggings most of the time, so they'll go with black leggings. Yeah, so it's taken me a lot longer than it normally would because this is fingering weight, but I got a fair amount done on the ride home. from Idaho for Christmas, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I also got, when I bought the yarn, some Tazo pumpkin spice chai tea, which I'm drinking right now. So that was a nice little addition from Taylor, a Fiber for the People, for this yarn. So that's the bigger project that I've got going right now. I'm hoping to get it done relatively quickly because I have a whole bunch of stuff coming in for more garments. So I did order the yarn that was sitting in my cart for the projects I talked about on last episode, which I will be talking about again in the future, of course. This project is living in my I Do As I Please black cat bag. I'm sure everyone has forgotten I have a black cat up here. He's blending in with the chairs behind him. So that is there, and then of course my Fleet Feet socks are living in my Whimsical Wood yarn company bag, which is a super cute little bag. So that's what I'm working on right now. Yeah, I talked about a whole bunch of stuff that's next on my needles. Last episode, I've got yarn coming for those things, and then of course I have another thing that I bought yarn for. It is the Shushi Shrug, I think is how you pronounce that, by Suzanne Summer. I have the Robin's Promise, or I have the yarn for it, well, some of the yarn, I should say. So a long time ago, last year sometime, probably around this time last year, I had bought some gray Robin's Promise yarn. Robin's Promise is the yarn carried by the Fly Needles yarn shop in Williamsburg, Virginia, which was my first local yarn store. And I got this gray for this shawl, and then I got some Noro in like kind of an aqua. And then I sat on it for a while, and the textures of the yarns are totally different, and I wasn't sure how the aqua would look on me. And I was also, you know, thinking based on the pattern in that case, and thought maybe I'd like it better in a different color. Anyway, I've been sitting on it for a year and just like looking at all these different indie dyers, and always like in the back of my mind I've been looking for a companion to this gray that I have. And then today, Yarn Over New York uploaded a bunch of purple yarns to their shop, and I love purple, and I found some perfect yarn for that. So I placed that order, and it should be coming in the next week or so. I probably won't get to it right away, but that is, I'm going to have the yarn ready for that, and that will be imminent on my needles coming up in the future. So that's what's next for me. I've got the Maja cardigan and the Harry Poofer sweater cardigan and the beauty school sweater. So obviously I have a lot like to keep me busy through at least the next half a year, so we'll see. But also as far as what's next, I've got some goals for the new year. I don't really set resolutions, but I'm always setting various goals, and I usually get swept up in whatever New Year's things are trending. So I have, I'm in a knitting group with my sister-in-law Bethany of Sethany Knits, the yarn shop up in Medford, Oregon, and a couple of her friends, some of which have become my friends already, and I'm joining, we're adding a couple more people to that group. So we decided to do a knitting bingo amongst ourselves where we all submitted some ideas for this bingo card. So here's the bingo card. Hopefully you can see that with I mean, you don't necessarily have to read it, but this is my little bullet journal notebook dealio. But yeah, so there's things like work with mohair, stitch a pattern from a book, knit with hand spun yarn. Where's one of mine? Knit something scrappy, so I want to make a scrappy blanket this year. So that's just kind of a fun way to check things off a list as you go throughout the year. So I'll be doing, I've got some ideas on ways to bingo on the other page here. So something I've wanted to make for a long time is the Weekender. It was one of the first patterns I ever bought that I just never made. Something steeked. The Maha cardigan is coming up for me on that. I want to do a granny square crochet blanket for something scrappy. And then for something cabled, I recently downloaded the Aspen cable hat pattern. So anyway, that's going to be fun, I think, coming up. And then Make 9 is a sewing challenge that happens every year where you choose 9 garments or 9 things you want to sew. So I made a little Make 9 page for myself. And the 9 things I want to make is my DIY denim skirt, which I think I shared with you the first episode. I've got it all cut out and I just need to sew it. So the DIY denim skirt, I have a really cool 70s style floral print that I might not have enough to make a dress out of, but I definitely want to make a skirt. So that's number 2. I want to make another Pleiades 2 dress. I used that pattern to make my Christmas dress, which I shared about in last episode. I want to make a pair of shorts. I want to make a pair of undies. I want to make a button-up shirt for myself. I have, I've got fabric stash for all of these things. I want to make a t-shirt with a Peter Pan collar. I saw Angela from The Office in one and I was like, I could make that. That looks cute. I want to make a t-shirt dress, and I want to make myself a pair of yoga pants / leggings. So those are 9 garments I would like to sew for myself this year. We'll see. And then another kind of goal that I've been thinking about a lot is to knit from stash more. I have a pretty small stash. I've only been knitting for like a year and a half now. Yeah, a year and a half. And so my stash is pretty small. It takes up maybe like maybe 1 big tote, like, big plastic tote. I've got it kind of spread out around the house, but most of the projects that I've talked about, particularly in last episode, I've got all the yarn queued up for that, for like the next 4 projects. I've got yarn queued up for more, like, I have enough to keep me busy for the rest of the year. So for everything that's in that knitting bingo card, for example, I'm pretty sure I could knit out of my stash and get all that done, except for like the knit with hand spun, because I'm not a spinner. So yeah. Anyway, I like to keep things fairly minimal if I can. I don't really like to hoard stuff. So I'd like to get my stash down to a place where I feel like I could knit everything that's in my stash, as opposed to just accumulating more, like 2 skeins for every 1 skein I actually knit, or more. So that's just a little thing that's in the back of my mind. Something I'd like to do is knit from stash more. Yeah, as I said, I have the next like 5 garments queued up, and I bought yarn for all those garments, so I think I'm good as far as purchasing yarn, or I should be. Of course, that didn't stop me from purchasing yarn today or over Christmas, but I'm trying. I really am. So that is, those are some of my crafting and knitting related goals. Some personal goals I have. I would like to run a marathon this year. I don't know if any of y'all are runners or have any kind of fitness goals, but I got into running this last year, and I would like to run a marathon. And I would like to go backpacking more than once. I was planning on backpacking the Pacific Crest Trail in this last year, actually, in March of 2020. And then March of 2020, of course, is when COVID happened. I also had injured my foot, so I wasn't going to be able to go anyway, but that the hiking the PCT has been a long time dream of mine, and I need to stay in backpacking shape if I want to ever do that. So so I definitely need to, like, I also have a ton of gear now that I would like to use, so I'd like to do some backpacking this year as well. So those are a couple of personal goals to just, add texture. Like I mentioned in the last episode, I love to talk about goals, so please do share some of your goals for this week, this month, this year, your life. I love goals, so leave a comment. Let me know what you're hoping to get done in 2021. And I think, oh wait, I always forget. I want to leave you with a recommendation of what you can watch next. Because at this point, if you're like me, you're all caught up on this podcast series. 3 episodes in, yay! So something you can watch next, a podcast that I adore here on YouTube, is called Knitting Vicariously by Caroline, also known as Dunder Knit on the socials. She is a Scottish lady living in London, I believe, and she's super fun. And I love her. She knits sweaters all the time, and she has a gorgeous stash, which is a work of art in and of itself. And that was her backdrop for a while. She just recently moved. Anyway, you can learn all this and find out all this on your own. I think she's fabulous. I consider her one of my podcast friends who doesn't know that she's friends with me. One of those situations. And I highly recommend that you go check her out. She's got a nice backlog to keep you busy for a long time. So, Knitting Vicariously here on YouTube. And with that, you can find me as Kira Knits Things on Instagram or Kira Barsodi on Ravelry. Obviously, you found me here on YouTube. So if you want to be notified when I post a new episode, which is kind of sporadic at this point, then subscribe. And hopefully YouTube will tell you. You never know these days who's going to tell you what, because algorithms. Anyway, do subscribe. I would love that. And yeah, I hope that your 2021 is off to a great start so far. And yeah, Happy New Year to everyone.